Mm-hmm.
Is this a new one?
No. So solving from Friday.
This is a new
So we're finishing up the solving work or note sheet from Friday. We didn't finish it then, so we're going to finish it up today. And I can't remember if we got to this one or the one before it. Okay, we got to this one already, and we did this one. So this here is the one we are starting with today. So we have this one, and I think one or two more, and then we're done with this here, this note sheet. So looking at this one here, again, first thing we need to do is find the restrictions. And then we can start solving. But if we look at this here, -2 and +2, yes. But x squared minus 4, is that factor completely? No. Yes. So we're going to need to factor x squared minus 4. And yes, it is going to be x plus 2 and x minus 2, because x squared minus 4 is a difference of perfect squares. So our signs are going to be opposite. X squared is going to be x and x, and 4 is 2 and 2. Now our restrictions are indeed positive and -2. And to find those, we set x plus 2 equals 0 and x minus 2 equals 0 and solve. So for x minus 2, we can add 2 to both sides, showing us that x cannot be positive 2. Same with x plus 2, we minus 2 from both sides. So if we get a solution that is positive or -2, those are our restrictions and will not work. Any questions on this so far? Now at this point here, we can start solving. And one of the things that we need to do in solving is multiplying the entire equation by a certain expression or expressions. So what's one thing we can multiply everything by? X plus 2 and x minus 2. In our first expression, the x minus 2 and x minus 2 would cancel. Our middle expression, the x plus 2 and x plus 2 would cancel. And our last one, the x plus 2 and x plus 2 will cancel. And the x minus 2 and x minus 2 will cancel. Now for this here, we only had to use x plus 2 and x minus 2 once, because in any of the denominators, they only appeared once in each of the fractions. And let's see what we have left. In the first one, what we're left with is 5 times x plus 2 minus 2 times x minus 2 is equal to 3. Now at this point here, we can distribute. We can simplify the left-hand side. So we can distribute the 5 through. 5 times x is going to be 5x. 5 times 2 is plus 10. Here we can distribute the -2. -2 times x is -2x. -2 times -2 is going to be plus 4 is equal to 3. Combine like terms, 5x minus 2x is 10 plus 4 is plus. Now at this point here, we need to get x by itself, so we can subtract. 4 14 from both sides, telling us 3x is equal to negative 11. And last but not least, we would divide by 3, telling us x is equal to negative 11 thirds. Any questions on this here? Is that one of our restrictions? So, that is our solution. Awesome. Let's look at the next one. Now this one here looks very similar to the last one, but there's a few things that we need to do before we get started. One of them is going to be factoring the denominators. Because we have x squared minus 4 just like the last one, and it'll factor 2, x plus 2, and x minus 2. How can we factor the 2x minus 4? We can factor a 2 out, which will give us x minus 2. What can we do next? We can multiply it all, but let's get our restrictions. So for x plus 2 equals 0, we would minus 2 telling us x cannot be negative 2. We also have x plus 2, just like the last one, telling us x cannot be, well, not x plus 2, x minus 2. So we'd add 2, telling us x cannot be 2. 2 or negative 2. Now, just because we have a 2 in the denominator out front doesn't really impact anything because we can't plug a value in for it. It's just a scalar. Now, what are we going to multiply everything by? So in our first one, the x plus 2 and x plus 2 would cancel. Our middle one, the 2 and the x minus 2. Both of these will cancel. And in the last one, the x plus 2 and x plus 2 would cancel. X minus 2 and x minus 2 would cancel. Any questions on this so far? So let's see what's left. In our first one, we have 5 times 2, and 5 times 2 would be 10. And then we have our x minus 2. Minus 2 times x plus 2 is equal to 3 times 2 is and we're going to come back to a little point we'll look at later. Now, at this point here, we can distribute 10 times x is 10x. 10 times negative 2 is negative 20. Then we can distribute the negative 2. Negative 2 times x is negative 2x. Negative 2 times 2 is negative 4. At this point here, we can combine like terms. 10x minus 2x is 8x. Negative 20 minus 4 is negative 24 is equal to 6. We'd get x by itself, so we would add 24 to both sides, telling us 8x is equal to 30. And the last thing we can do is divide both sides by 8. Will 30 over 8 reduce? 30 over 8 reduce. Which would make it? Yeah, because 30 over 8 would reduce to 15 over 4 because they do have a common factor of 2. Either calculator would simplify that for us. We would just have to plug it in. Or we can say 3.75 is the decimal version of this. Either one of those would work. Questions on this here? Now, there's one thing I want to look at. All the way back here. What's 2 over 2? So we could have simplified this and just said that this was 1, and that simplifies out, which means we wouldn't need the extra 2, yes? Which would have given us 5 times x minus 2 minus x plus 2 is equal to 3. Now the question is, will this change the answer? Because here if we distribute through, 5 times x is 5x. 5 times negative 2 is negative 10. Here we'd have negative x minus 2 is equal to 3. 5x minus x is 4x, negative 10 minus 2 is negative 12 is equal to 3. Are these two here similar? The only difference, the one in black is multiplied by 2. So that extra factor of 2 that we did multiply everything by increased it by a factor of 2. Because again, at the very end, the very last step for the one we just did, we had a common factor of 2. So as I've been saying throughout most of this, if we add an extra factor, it simplifies out in the end, or it comes back out, especially if it's a number. If it's a polynomial, here if we add an extra polynomial, an x plus 2 or x minus 2 through our multiplication, one of our solutions would have been positive or negative 2, which is a restriction and doesn't work. So that's one of the reasons we want to make sure when we multiply through, we want it to be the least common one that we can have. Questions on this here? We have one more we're going to look at. And that's this one here. Now, there's 3 different expressions that we have in the denominators. We have x, we have x minus 1, and we have x minus 2. Out of all 3, figuring out what value of x will make x be 0 is 0. So we know x cannot be 0. So x cannot be 0. With x minus 1, it would be positive 1. And with x minus 2, x cannot be 2. So for this one here, we have 3 restrictions. 3 values of x that we cannot have. So I think some of you already have it written down. What we're going to multiply everything by is x, x minus 1, and x minus 2. The first one, the x minus 2 and x minus 2 cancels. In the middle, the x and x minus 1 cancel. And the last one, everything cancels. So what we have left in the first one is 1 times x minus 1, which is just x times x minus 1, plus 2 times x minus 2 plus 2 is equal to 0. This one here, we're going to have a quadratic. This one here, we're going to have a quadratic. And we can see that because our first thing that we're multiplying is x and negative 1. X times x is x squared. X times negative 1 is negative x. Here we distribute the 2. 2 times x is plus 2x. 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. Plus 2 is equal to 0. Combine like terms. We have x squared plus x minus 2 is equal to 0. Questions on this so far? Now at this point here, we could factor it, graph it, quadratic formula. I have a feeling if we can graph it, I would prefer graphing. X squared minus 0 plus x minus 2, yes? Yep, plus x minus 2. We get this here. So does it cross at 2 nice points? Because again, when we graph it, we're trying to see where it crosses the x-axis. And we can go second graph to look at the table. And what two values of x give us a y value of 0? Negative 2 and 1. So what that tells us is that here x is equal to negative 2 and x is equal to 1. So these here are our two solutions. Do both of them work? Which one doesn't? 1. So our only actual solution is x is equal to negative 2. Questions on this here? And that is it.